This video is brought to you by my latest book, How to Play Melodic Rock Lead Guitar, a comprehensive guide to doing exactly that, playing melodic rock lead guitar. This is not just some collection of scale patterns and tabs, although you do get plenty of those, but you also get an entire chapter on how to come up with your own licks, as well as video content, tutorials and demonstrations, loads of jam tracks, and all the way through I'm encouraging you to expand your fretboard knowledge and showing you how you can think in a more musical and melodic way. Check out the link in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Let's talk about signature model guitars, shall we? And the fact that I'm starting to notice, maybe it's been this way for forever, but I'm only noticing it relatively recently, the fact that they tend to fall into two distinct camps. There are those signature model guitars which immediately mark you out as being a massive admirer of one guitarist in particular. For example, you pull one of these out of the gig bag at a gig or a rehearsal or a jam night or whatever, and everybody knows that you've probably got every album Queen ever recorded, and you probably copped a few Brian May licks in your time. Likewise, I can't think there are many non-Van Halen enthusiasts who've ever bought one of these. One of these immediately, I think, marks you out as being a bit of a Steve Vai fanboy. Correct me if I'm wrong, I might be, but leave that in the comments. I think it was in a Robert Baker video where he said that essentially there's an Ibanez RG something or other, one of those models that is essentially the same guitar as the Ibanez Gem, the Steve Vai model, minus the monkey grip and the kind of Tree of Life inlays. So if you've got one of these, then you've obviously gone for the particular Steve Vai options for a reason. Do you know any non-Paul Gilbert fans who've ever bought one of these? Me neither. And even something as conservative looking as a Strat, if it's this particular model, yes, we know you're a massive Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to sound like I'm belittling the idea of fanboyism, if there is such a thing. I very recently almost pulled the trigger on one of those Epiphone Greeny Les Pauls because I'm a massive Gary Moore fanboy. I still haven't ruled it out yet. We'll just watch this space. But then there are the other type of signature model guitar which seem to have a broader appeal than just the fan base of one particular guitarist. And those are the ones I want to talk about today, starting with
Gibson Les Paul.
I don't think it's an exaggeration. Well, I'm going to prove it isn't an exaggeration shortly to say that many people who own Les Pauls don't have a clue who the actual chap Les Paul was. A few years ago, one of my students, been playing a little while, kind of just upgraded from their entry level. I think it was probably a Squire Strat or something like that they had, and they wanted a Les Paul style guitar. So he got himself an Epiphone Les Paul standard. Lovely guitar. And he kept pronouncing it Les Paul as if it was like, a French pronunciation. Because that's just how it kind of resonated in his mind. And I had to explain to him, no, it's called a Les Paul after the guitar player called Les Paul. And then kind of had a little bit of a conversation about, how the Les Paul came to be and all that sort of stuff, his relationship with Gibson. But there's a classic example of somebody that wasn't, a Les Paul fan who owned a Gibson or an Epiphone Les Paul. It's often easy to forget that the Les Paul guitar was, I don't think, possibly the first ever signature model guitar. The Paul Bigsby Merle Travis guitar was around well before that, but it was certainly, one of the early ones. And we think about signature model guitars, we don't often include the Les Paul because it's just so blindingly obvious that you overlook it. But any discussion of signature model guitars that have reached beyond the fan base of the original guitar player they were made for has to include the Les Paul, so that's why it's on the list. Next,
PRS Silver Sky.
When I first saw the PRS Silver Sky when it came out, gosh, when was it? 6 years ago, something like that. It just looked so odd to me. It's not an odd-looking guitar, but it looked a bit odd to me. Just that sort of upside-down PRS headstock on a Strat body. I just thought, yeah, that's kind of such a unique-looking guitar that it's obviously kind of going for like a John Mayer Stratocaster kind of vibe. But I thought anybody that isn't a massive John Mayer fan is probably just going to buy a Strat. Okay, how wrong was I? I know 3 people that have got John Mayer guitars, and 2 of them, I think, yeah, 2 of them have no idea who John Mayer is. Now, if you're in the States, that probably sounds a little bit ridiculous. How can you not know who John Mayer is? He's a much bigger star over there than he is here. Well, you know, since his association with PRS, that has, you know, that people know that now as the John Mayer signature model. But until then, the main claim to fame that he had over here was that he briefly went out with Jennifer Aniston. You know, that was certainly the first I'd heard of him when my missus was reading one of her gossip magazines and said, "Do you know a blues guitarist called John Mayer?" I said, "No." He says, "Oh, well, he's going out with Jennifer Aniston." But, you know, the appeal of that guitar, it's reached well beyond his fan base. You know, you're now getting people who are just after a good Strat style guitar, and that's always one of the guitars in the mix when it comes to, okay, I might have a look at a Fender, I might have a look at you know, some of the brands, and the PRS is always in there as one to check out. So yes, that one ought to be on the list as well. Next,
Fender Richie Kotzen Telecaster.
Yep, the Fender Richie Kotzen Telecaster. Another guitar that I think legitimately we can say that its appeal is broader than that of the hardcore Richie Kotzen fan base. You know, I played one briefly, just like somebody brought one to a lesson, and you know, I said, "Oh, can I have a little bit of a twiddle on that?" And you know, the neck felt quite chunky, it has to be said. But as long as that's not something that's going to bother you, you know, it just felt like a really well put together, you know, good blues rock machine. You know, that the chopper T pickup in the bridge still sounds very Telecaster-like, but just, you know, like a Telecaster that's had an extra Weetabix that morning. And what is it, I can't remember the name of the single coil pickup in the neck, but, you know, just, again, a really good Telecaster neck pickup sound. You've got that 4-way kind of thing. Well, it's not actually on the pickup switch, is it? It's on where the tone control would be, where you can get both pickups in series to get like a humbucker sound. Great versatile guitar that, as I say, it seems to be finding a lot of fans outside the hardcore Richie Kotzen fan base. So yeah, that one had to be on the list. Next,
Music Man Axis.
Okay, so maybe I'm stretching it a bit with this one. The Music Man Axis isn't actually a signature model guitar, but it used to be. When Eddie Van Halen left, was it Kramer, and went to Music Man for his signature model guitar, spent a little while with him. He did seem to go through a phase in the 90s, didn't he, Van Halen, where he was kind of Kramer, then to Music Man to Peavey, and then Peavey to his own guitar brand, the EVH brand. You know, but after he jumped ship from Music Man, they basically kept making the same guitar and just took his name off it and called it the Axis. Made maybe a couple of tweaks that weren't on that sort of broadened the appeal a little bit, like famously the Eddie Van Halen official signature model didn't have a tone control. It had a volume control with the word tone on it, but it was just a volume control. And, you know, so maybe giving it a tone control, maybe giving it some more pickup switching options and offering it with a non-locking trem, that kind of thing. But, you know, the Music Man Axis, very, very, very popular guitar, deservedly so. I played one a couple of years ago. I had a loan of one, and it was a very difficult guitar to give back to its rightful owner. Brilliant guitar. and it wouldn't exist if it hadn't started out as the Eddie Van Halen signature model. So I'm sneaking onto the list under those under that sort of excuse, really. Anyway, it had to be on the list. Next,
PRS David Grissom.
yes, another PRS, the DGT Dave Grissom Trem. I think that's what DGT stands for. Again, I would wager that many people that have a Dave Grissom signature model from PRS probably have heard very little of Dave Grissom's playing. Again, he's a bit like John Mayer in the UK. I don't know what his profile's like in the USA, but over here, it's, he's hardly a household name. Even some guitarists that I speak to don't know the name David Grissom, but they know the PRS DGT model. So that's pretty much the definition of a signature model guitar that has reached well beyond the pool of players who are massive fans of the guitarist in question. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good reports about these guitars, especially the relatively new SE versions of them. Again, it's sort of on my gasometer. It's kind of it's that thing whenever you're bored and you pick your phone out and you kind of flip and you open up eBay. It's like, I'll just see if there's a good deal going on a PRS DGT anyway, and if there's one that's ridiculously low priced, then, you start thinking. So I'm gassing a bit for that one. And, I couldn't tell you the name of a single Dave Grissom tune, to be honest with you. I've seen him in YouTube videos and I've heard examples of his playing, and he seems like a top bloke and a really good player. But I'm going to admit now, I'm not a massive Dave Grissom fanboy because I am relatively ignorant on his output, but I still like the look of one of his guitars. So there you go. Those are the 5 signature model guitars that I think reach far and away beyond the fan base, the hardcore fans of the guitarist in question. Let me know if you think I've missed any. Let me know if you have any suggestions that should have been on this list that weren't, or if you think I'm wrong on any of the guitars I've been talking about and I've been just blethering away like a blithering idiot for the last however long it is, 15 minutes, then as I say, let me know in the comments. But that is the video for today, folks. Hope you found it entertaining in some small way, and if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. Why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. Don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time. We drink beer and we talk about stuff. That's basically it. Do you need anything more on a Friday? No, it's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.